Raider Nation, what's going on? It's Mitchell Renz, your host of the Raiders Report, with some breaking news here to discuss. Michael Gallup has retired from the NFL. This is a player that Chugs and I have been saying all offseason. A source close to us from the Dallas Cowboys has been telling us that, he's basically been playing on one leg. And there were some reports out there that he looked okay, but we have kind of stayed strong to this where Gallup hasn't been healthy, and he hasn't been healthy for a long time. And this obviously essentially confirms that. They signed him to a one-year, potentially $3 million deal. One of the things that we discussed on the show was for a receiver that has the name value like Michael Gallup, for a player that has had the success in the NFL, for him to only get a job that's 1 year up to $3 million is a little bit surprising. But you know what? That's not the only big-time news that we have coming in here right now. Also, Jalen Guyton, Kolton Miller were added to the PUP list. Some other players on top of that. We talked about Darian Butler earlier. We talked about Jake Johanning earlier. We talked about Jackson Powers-Johnson earlier. But now you also add Jalen Guyton and Kolton Miller on that physically unable to perform list entering training camp, which, Kolton Miller, I think they just want to take it a little bit slow. He's still dealing with that shoulder injury, and Antonio Pierce spoke today and said that, he's going to check in with Kolton, but that he thought he looked good, and we'll kind of see how it goes. I think for Miller, don't get me wrong, I am definitely a little bit nervous. We'll talk about this going on here, and I'll break down every single one of these injuries, and then I'm also going to be breaking down today what the meaning of Michael Gallup retiring, and, what does this necessarily mean for this Raiders wide receiver room, because I do really think it changes up a 53-man roster projection video, which I talked a little bit today here on the show. Now, again, we do a lot of news, we do a lot of rumors. I'm at home right now. I literally just got home, started making dinner for my fiance and I and Chuck, and guess what? Anytime Raiders news happens, I promise you this: I got you covered. Hit that subscribe button, turn on those notifications, because this is the time of the year when it starts to get fun. So let's first talk here about Michael Gallup. Michael Gallup retires. When you look at the Raiders wide receiver room, Devontae Adams is going to get his. Jacoby Myers is going to make the roster. Now, to me, this means even a bigger opportunity for Trey Tucker. I always viewed Tucker as that wide receiver 3. We kind of said Gallup was that wide receiver 4 here. But now you're asking for somebody else to step up. Tom McMahon this offseason said that he loved DJ Turner. And I think DJ Turner now is really going to have a good opportunity to make this roster as a special teams player, and maybe he gets a few gadget plays here and there. Another person that this I do think helps is Jalen Guyton, though with him starting on the PUP list, maybe his relationship previously with Telesco, since he used to be with the Chargers, could help him out a little bit. But if you're one of those UDFA wide receivers, the name I'm going to throw out there, well, how about this? I want y'all to name a receiver that we probably didn't talk about making the 53-man roster, but now with the breaking news of Michael Gallup retiring from the NFL, you're about to get hit with a YouTube ad break. I want you to scroll on down and give me an answer. Which wide receiver now is going to make the roster now that Gallup is retired? The answer that I'm going to go ahead and go here with is I'm going to go with Tulu Griffin. I've heard a lot of good things about this kid. They also like his ability on special teams. He's definitely a player to watch out for in training camp. He's also going to be a player to watch out for in the preseason. Chuck says hi to all y'all again. We were just getting ready for dinner. But Tulu Griffin is going to be a name that I'm telling y'all right now, keep an eye out for him. And Tulu, if you watch the show, bro, I'd love to get you on here sometime. All right, let's keep it moving here with the Michael Gallup news. I do think another receiver, Keaton would be another guy I think you could at least throw out there. But what this also means to me is I don't think we should look at it just from the receiver standpoint, right? The Raiders drafted Brock Bowers, 13th overall out of Georgia, who played predominantly out of the slot. They can also line him up a little bit as like an H-back, kind of the way that the 49ers do with Kyle Juszczyk. He's also going to line up as tight end. One of the things that I've been preaching a lot of, if the Raiders are going to go with 12 personnel, and if, God forbid, if an injury pops up, you're going to be stuck in a situation. So to me, I think this also helps out a player like a Zach Gentry. I don't think John Samuel Schnenker ends up making the roster. I don't think another tight end like Cole Fotheringham ends up making the roster. But to me, this helps Gentry, tight end 4, because now if you're in this situation, if you're the Raiders, if this was the regular season, I think we'd all agree, it'd be like, all right, Bowers might have to play a little bit more at the wide receiver position. So if Bowers has to be counted on a little bit more at receiver, then you're going to count on Michael Mayer. Then you're going to be able to have to count on Harrison Bryant. Harrison Bryant's one of the best tight end 3s in the NFL. Could this help out Zach Gentry, who's 6'8", 250, can be another little bit of a red zone option here for the Las Vegas Raiders? All right, next thing coming up here is let's talk about some of these injuries. The first one is the big one, Kolton Miller, right? Kolton Miller dealing with that shoulder injury. I'm hoping that this is them just not rushing anything. You kind of just see how the first week of practices, see what Andres Pete looks like, see what somebody like Cody Whitehair looks like, and just figure out your offensive line. I will admit, I am a big believer in chemistry. You got a new offensive line coach in James Craig. I would like to see Miller out there if he's able to, and I think if he was 100% healthy, he would be out there. Antonio Pierce said today that they're going to hit the ground running, right? Like, they're going to get it moving. They're going to get it going right away. So I think the fact that Miller isn't out there does make me a little bit nervous. I'm not going to lie. I'm the panic meter from 1 to 10. I'd probably put it at a 5, maybe a 6, but that's just because he's Kolton Miller and he's the best offensive lineman we have. The other guy on the offensive line now is Jackson Powers-Johnson. So one of the things that I talked about today was Paul Gutierrez said that Cody Whitehair has the upper hand over Jackson Powers-Johnson in terms of starting at left guard. And I definitely think that this could have been one of the reasons why, just in terms of the injuries and the fact that he's got that connection already with Luke Getsy, the fact that he's got a connection with Champ Kelly, and if you're healthy, you're going to get that extra opportunity. But for a guy like Jackson Powers-Johnson, and it sounds like he's dealing with a lower body injury, you look at an injury like that and you go, I hope it doesn't continue to linger. I was told that it was a groin this offseason. Definitely something to monitor, but really, really hoping he's out there and he's healthy. Kind of talked about Jalen Guyton and how this impacts the wide receiver room. But again, if Jalen Guyton is injured and Michael Gallup doesn't end up making this team, if you're the Raiders here, I'm actually really curious to see if they end up making a move, whether it be tonight. If they make a move tonight, I'm totally down to go live at this point. It's got to be a big signing. But, you got to look at some depth. It wouldn't surprise me if they decide to bring in a few extra bodies, just kind of in case. Jake Chahani was a UDFA from Furman. They did give him a lot of money guaranteed. I want to say they gave him $200,000 guaranteed, which is one of the most for the Raiders this offseason for a UDFA. He's a versatile player, a little bit undersized. Definitely somebody to keep an eye out for. And then Darian Butler. Darian Butler is still battling that just horrific knee injury that he had last preseason. Does have a lot of ties with Antonio Pierce from their time back at Arizona State. And to me, if the Raiders were to keep it that extra linebacker, right? Like Robert Spillane, Divine Diablo, Luke Masterson, Amari Burney, they're going to end up making this roster, and Tommy Eichenberg also. Could they keep a sixth linebacker? And I say that because you hear these new kickoff return rules, and a lot of times when coaches, people in general, are a little bit unsure of something, they try to go above and beyond to make sure that they're in a good spot. Could be in that good spot be keep that sixth linebacker to help you out on special teams. The guy that I said today, it could potentially be, I said that it could potentially be Darian Butler just because he has the connection. Another dude, though, that this really does help is Kanai Malga, because Malga, he's battling with Butler to be that sixth linebacker. Maybe they decide to keep somebody else, but they might only keep one linebacker for that practice squad. And Malga has kind of been that guy for Antonio Pierce, even since, he took over, and he's kind of been that guy for the Raiders the past few seasons. So, again, the breaking news here is, and it's a lot to be able to wrap through, Michael Gallup retired from the NFL at only 28 years old. It just proves that foot, he was playing on one leg the entire time, which, again, was something that we said multiple times on our show. And then the other thing that I think you really got to keep an eye out is just all the other injuries that the Raiders have. Darian Butler, Jackson Powers-Johnson, Jalen Guyton, Kolton Miller. If anything else happens tonight, I got you covered. If anything else happens tomorrow, I didn't plan on going live, but I will be at work. I'm getting ready to go to my bachelor party July 25th to the 29th, so if any crazy Raiders news happens while I'm gone, my guy Jeremy Chuggs, he got you covered here on the Raiders Report.